And you can see here that she is utilizing this very special type of the activation of the mouth, which comes from so-called buccal breathing. This is the good old set of amphibians. You might say, like, but how is that related to my child? Well, look, this is what the real understanding of fascia is. So if we're looking at the fascia organization, what does it tell us? The fascia perspective tells us that things are kind of nested in the levels and layers of the organization. So mammals, and we are on the very top of mammals, so humans, right? So you see, we have the so-called costal breathing. Costal breathing, which is the one that comes from the ribcage, so where the visible movements, visible activation is of the one of the ribcage, of which the humans have even more special things. So we are the only mammals who have what could be seen as a kind of super costal breathing, because we have our costal breathing, which is not dependent on movement and which is not dependent on locomotion. So you don't, like, putting it simply, a dog or a cat cannot really stay in a bedridden situation, because within a relatively short space of time, a couple of days, they would just not be able to continue breathing. So, because they need movement, like moving their legs, arms, and, well, the limbs, in order to power their respiration. So, in that sense, this is a pyramid, right? So, you see, the pyramid sits like this. The human part, the supracostal breathing, requires their controls and the quality of the fascia, which controls the previous level. Then, under the supracostal breathing, that's a costal breathing, and then there is a buccal. So in other words, as humans, we have all these three levels stacked within each other. And when the person faces a catastrophe of birth, right, so you see this challenge, huge difficulty, transition from a peaceful in utero situation into this, landing on Earth. And Earth, compared to life in the aquatic environment when she was, in utero, living on Earth is very hard. So that transition is very, very difficult. It's a crisis. So then, respectively, the controls kind of roll back to the factory settings. And the key factory settings, that would be the buccal breathing. Now, I have a special webinar with a long explanation of this, which you're very welcome to watch, but this is something which you don't have to feel offended or you're comparing my daughter to a frog. No, I'm just pointing out that we are, humans. We are, if you look at the classification, right? So you see, we are primates. We are like on top of the primates. We are then, but we are primates. Then we are mammals. Then we are, quadrupeds, and then so on and so forth. Right? So in that sense, we belong to the whole pyramid, which is always within us. And then, if we face a crisis, the system rolls back to the more controllable system from the fascia perspective. But of course, our entire anatomy is human anatomy, so that's why it helps to survive, but it's not really compatible with the way to power the future human development.